What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the We Want Florida podcast. I'm Nathan Bray here with Joe Damer, Austin Wiseman. It's been a minute. We're a week post Stanley Cup Finals champions. How's your last week been? How you guys feeling?
It's been fantastic, man. We're out here just living our best life, I got a new hat. You guys can tell you guys like it. It's cool, right? But yeah, no, it's cloud nine, man. It's fantastic.
It's been like a few hours a day just watching videos on either the highlights of the game or what they're doing off the ice, how to get time at the parade. Just been enjoying it.
Yeah, just yeah, Cloud Nine, like you guys said, we're happy. So obviously, no hockey games to talk about, but we're gonna go into the offseason. We're going to get into contracts. We're going to get into who we think stays, who we think goes. Um, who knows? Maybe possible trades. July 1st starts the free agency. Everybody opens up, and we'll see what we got. But Panthers, we have 19 million in cap space. Obviously, we have a lot of guys locked up long term, first and second liners, even Blundell in the third line. So the core kind of stays, but we have some guys that I guess you could say are in the core, big time guys, and we've heard a lot of talk about the main three being Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, and Aaron Ekblad, all up for free agency this year. So I want to just start with a simple, I think, a simple question. Is there a chance, or what's the percentage that the three of these guys stay Florida Panthers?
I was a lot when free agency started, I was a lot more down on the chance that it could happen, but that's me not believing in Zito magic. I still can't believe the things he pulls off. It could be a situation where he pulls something off, but something else might have to give. We'll get into that, I'm sure. I'm sure that'll be one of your questions, but I'd say right now, I'd say there's like a there's like a 30% chance we keep all
Wow,
three.
that's way higher than I thought, but okay.
Yeah, they're gonna have to create some magic if they're gonna keep all three. With 19 in cap, you also got to look at it's not just those three guys you have to replace. Well, obviously not replace, but there's those spots. There's also Nate Schmidt who's up for a contract. That's another defenseman. There's Sam Oskevich who's an RFA. He's gonna have to figure out that situation. The chances are if it does happen, you probably have to see someone either get traded or you're gonna have to see a massive cut in what a guy's worth, and that's more on probably Marchand or Ekblad's side. If they take a pay cut, that's the only chance it's possible. And on a percentage wise, I'm right now I would stick at like 20%.
Wow, both higher than what I was thinking.
I don't
I'm
doubt Bill. I don't doubt him.
Yeah, I don't doubt him either.
uh,
You know those taxes.
I don't yeah, I don't doubt it, and I don't doubt him, but I just don't see. I'm For me, it's all about value, right? And I just
Yep.
don't see the value of spending this kind of money that is being talked about anyway. Obviously, things happen, things change, but the numbers that have been floated around for these guys, the money's gone. It's even more than what we have. So I don't think it's very likely that we see the three of these guys stick together. But let's start with the Conn Smythe winner, Sam Bennett. I think this is probably the guy that is most likely to
Yeah.
stay out of the three, just based off kind of what we've heard, and to have a performance like that in the playoffs. I think that's what we see. Now, his previous contract around 4.5 million, I think just shy of 4.5 million, and obviously he's going to be worth, and we're going to have to pay him way more than that. Um, so just kind of give me your thoughts on how long. Obviously, we've heard some 8-year talk and chance and whatever you want to call it, but
Yeah.
just kind of give me your thoughts on him. How long? How much? What is too much? Where does it go to the line to where maybe we do let him walk?
Yeah, I think for Bennett, it looks like it's almost a sure thing that he's gonna stay a Panther. He's announced, he said some stuff. I don't know if he was fully sober for those, but my prediction is he does stay on an 8-year deal worth 7.75 a season. I think it's a little less what he can get on the open market, but it looks like he's not hitting the open market based on what we're hearing. So I don't know if his agent's too happy with him for saying all that stuff, but I'm gonna say Bennett comes back 8 years, 7.75. I think a team would have offered him like 9 or 10 on the open market, but looks like he's staying. I'm pretty sure about that.
It's going to be a huge sign as to Marchand and Ekblad as to what Bennett signs at. Obviously, we could all do math here, but I I honestly think and everything's been one gigantic rumor and everything, and um, but honestly, with the way things have gone and things have been handled. I wouldn't even be surprised if he signed a 8-year deal at 7.5. Um and I think that would be that would be awesome, obviously. That's what we want. But no man, I just really think he wants to be a Panther. I think this is home for him, home on that second line with Chucky. As far as too much goes, you know, we obviously, we need to sign two of the three. I feel like I guess it's not a need. You could look elsewhere for another player, but why mess up a good thing? We just won back-to-back cups. So, I think the goal is definitely signing two out of the three, which I think is completely doable. But for too much for Bennett, if he wanted, man, if he wanted like 9, that would really put us in a bad spot.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going. So I think my thought is we got to have in that 10-5 to 11-ish range,
Yeah.
hopefully even a little more, to kind of accomplish at least one more and then have enough to I don't know, maybe sign some guys back. But
Yeah.
if we get two of these guys, I think we can pretty much say most of the rest that are up are gone. And I just see, we've heard the 8-year thing, and I guess we can go with that and say that it's 8 years. I would love. I don't. Again, I don't see this happening at all. I would love an 8-year around 7. I I think that's very very undervalued. I think, like Austin said, he could get 10. I even think there'd be some teams willing to go closer to the 11 range for him. And it's just really tough to say how much we really need, right? Because who knows what's going through Brad Marchand's mind, but and also Aaron Ekblad's mind. So I, I think we're probably looking at the 8 years, $9 million range. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
Again, I would love to see a low 7, but I just don't.
Yeah. I think last year we signed Reinhardt to an 8-year deal worth 8.6 a season. I wouldn't go any over that. I guess if we meant we're keeping Sam Bennett, and they're like, you told me right now it has to be 9 million. I'm not gonna let him walk, but I really hope it's under 8.6.
Yeah, just the value. Obviously, you could
Yeah.
argue that again, Sam Bennett had the most goals in the playoffs, but you could argue that Sam Reinhart is just as clutch in the playoffs. I mean, we've seen what he's done, and
Yeah.
maybe who knows?
Absolutely.
Maybe you could argue that he's even more clutch, but we're not
Yeah,
going to go there in this
absolutely.
podcast. But um, so yeah, I definitely agree with staying under the 8.6 would be fair. Is it? I don't know. That's a tough one. And then we go to the Brad Marchand side with just over 6 million. I think it's 6.1 in his previous contract. A guy at 37 years old. Now we've seen some guys. The age seems to be going up in the league. Like you see Corey Perry, you see some guys that are 39, 40. Like you're seeing older guys still performing at a high level. So I'm not saying
Yeah.
37 he's done, but does a guy at 37 years old, obviously big playoffs, but regular season, does his numbers qualify for a pay increase?
I mean, I think Marchand is like I think he's gonna be worth whatever contract you give him. Like as long as 3 years, I think he has good hockey left in him. But I think we have to we're riding a high note. We just won the Stanley Cup. Marchand is obviously a great addition at the deadline. But if we're only keeping two out of the three guys, and we talked about how Bennett's a sure thing, so it comes down to Ekblad or Marchand. And we're here. What I'm hearing a lot is like seeing on Twitter and stuff that it's looks like Ekblad's gone and Marchand's staying. But I wouldn't think that's the smartest decision. Like obviously I want to keep Brad Marchand. He was an awesome player for us. But he's 37 years old at the end of the day. So like what like I don't know how much left he has in him. And then Ekblad's 29. His face is he's on the building of our stadium, so he's a leader on this team. I mean, you draft him first overall. He's not a guy I'd pick him over Marchand personally, but it's not looking like that. But going back to your question for Marchand, I'm fine. Like if we bring him back, I'm gonna celebrate it, and I'm fine with giving him anything within 3 years max, and then like 7 million per season max.
Yeah, Ekblad's also got a little important letter on his jersey too. But yeah, no, I mean Marchand, dude, 51 points this year. He's 37 years old. So that I mean the difference between, you see Ovechkin and and Crosby, well, I mean those are, some of the two greatest players of all time, but I'm saying, Corey Perry and Marchand, all four of them, they're old, whatever, but they were born to play hockey, bro. And
Yeah.
they're gonna stick with it until the wheels fall off. And for all of them, it doesn't really look like the wheels are falling off anytime soon. And Marchand, I could say that with confidence. I mean, the line he plays on, they elevate his game, um, a lot. I mean, we um, saw his plus minus in the playoffs, and when he played with the Panthers, even in the few games he did in the regular season, it was definitely an improvement from when he came from the Bruins. So that line really elevates him. So if anything, it's not like he's on a mission alone on that third line. So he doesn't really got to press his body in a certain way. That's like, I got to, make the big moment of all the time, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I agree with Austin. I think Ekblad is definitely the smarter move. But once again, will not be upset if Marchand is back.
Going back to what Joe said real quick, like I think him being 37, what him playing with the young 24-year-old Anton Lundell and whatever, Lusterin is probably about 26, 27, maybe 25.
He's
Like,
27.
yeah, like their young legs just brought something out of him that I feel like, getting on a new team, like a lot of that brought a lot of energy out of him that made him a lot better player than he was in Boston. Obviously, he's still a great player in Boston this year, but um, and then him, it works both ways. What they do for that line did for each other, he's making them better hockey players with his experience and how good he is with the puck and his veteran leadership. So that's definitely something I'd like to see for a full 82 is what Lundell and Lusterinen would be with Marchand for a full 82 and a 20-game playoff that looked pretty awesome.
So I think I'm going to be well, just based off what you said, I am going to be the lone wolf on this. I don't see the value. Again, it was all about value for me. And a 37-year-old Brad Marchand, fine. He performed. It was fantastic. Big part of winning the Stanley Cup. Brad Marchand at $7 million. If we're talking Sam Bennett, on the low end at 7.5, it's probably going to be more, but on the low end 7.5, we're down to 5 million, right? And yeah, you could argue that that's enough, but uh, for me, for Brad Marchand to stay, I think it has to be closer to the 5 million mark. And that's a pay cut. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think that somewhere some team will give him more, and I could be wrong on this, but I just don't see the value there at 7 million. That's my take on it. And here's another thing that I'm definitely off with you guys on. Ekblad was on a $7.5 million deal. I get he's a fundamental player of this team. He's a big part of it. I don't see in this circumstance where we are a $7.5 million contract making sense. And here's why. We have Seth Jones, who can step up into that role if needed. You know, we have Forsling. We have Mikkola, who's up next year, but I think a no sign with Ekblad, we'll have a lot more room to play around with re-signing Mikkola. So I don't think our defense, obviously no part of our team is a huge problem right now, but I would rather see some money go to our fourth line and the goaltending. And I understand Aaron Ekblad is a much bigger, fundamentally big player than the fourth line, but I just don't see the value at 7.5 million. If he wants to go a little less, I'm fine. I think it'd be more in the 6.5 range. I'm sure there's going to be teams out there that are willing to give him 7.5 or 8, whatever. Who knows? The market's kind of looking like it's going to be interesting this year, but the value is just not there for me for Aaron Ekblad. It's probably a hot take among all of Panther fans, but that's how I see it.
I'm with you on that. I think if you look at 7.5 value wise, I think it would be a little bit of an overpay, but more on the Ekblad thing is I don't really care what the AAV is going to be. I'm more on Ekblad compared to Bennett is I care about the term because look, he's a guy he's been hurt basically every year that he's played in the last 5. So if, I don't want to, if we give him an 8-year deal, what is a 36-year-old Aaron Ekblad going to look like one day? And I don't think it's going to be pretty. He's already losing his legs, but I give him 7.5. It's a 4 or 5-year term.
And we have Seth Jones and Gus Forsling
Right.
both in the 2030 and Forsling's 2032, I think
But it's
2033.
not going to be easy to replace a right shot defenseman. And like, I think, Joe
Yeah.
brought up Brent Burns is on the market, but I mean, that's a hard position to replace. And with Seth Jones, who would step onto the first pair, I believe like he's a complete different player. Don't get me wrong, than what he was in Chicago. But when he was playing the first pair, he wasn't as good as him playing on the second pair, obviously, just because time on ice and whatever. But so
But
I wouldn't.
getting
I
paired with
yeah,
Forsling is something completely different.
yeah.
So
And Keith Yandel brought this up. Is like Forsling and Ekblad together they elevate each other's game. When they're not with each other, it's not the same. So I'd like to keep those two together.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, Aaron Ekblad at 36. I don't know if it's a secret. I don't think it's going to be. He's not going to be Marchand at 36. But, I mean, despite the fact that they play different positions, I obviously got that. But yeah, no. I've seen this on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, everywhere, and it's everyone's going around and saying, uh, right-handed shot defensemen don't grow on trees, and it's like it's definitely something to factor in. I mean, you got other defensemen that are up. Like, you could look into an Orlov or, I said Burns, whatever. But it's not, I don't know, man.
I,
It's Ekblad's just such a big piece. It's
One
just
more,
it
yeah.
would be hard for, yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
We've talked about one thing. We've talked about how good this team's depth is. So if we were to lose a forward like Marchand, we have a guy like Mackie Samuelskiewicz who didn't play a lot in the playoffs. We have a guy Jesper Boquist who's sitting down there, didn't play in the Stanley Cup except for game one. So we have the depth to replace forwards. Do we have the right-handed defense depth to replace Ekblad unless you were to go out and sign a free agent for whatever it is? I mean, I'm gonna believe in what Bill Zito comes up with in this offseason, but there's more depth at forward. So
no,
I think
that's a great point.
Ekblad should be a priority in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point there. I mean, we definitely have the forward depth. Again, though, how much forward depth? Obviously, when you sign a guy, it really doesn't matter how much is in the cap, but eventually contracts come up. So in 3-4 years, when we have some other guys up, even in 2 years, Boquist, Rodriguez, Luosterainen, but it I just don't know if the 7.5 makes sense. That's what gets me caught up. But I guess we'll see what happens. That's a good point that you make. Our defense is not what our offense is, and we have guys on defense up like Nate Schmidt, who was on a $800,000
Yeah.
contract. Yeah,
The
so
signing, bro.
that's done.
Yeah.
I think we know where that's going, and
That boy's gonna hit the open market and get 4 million. Watch this.
Yep.
yeah, I know I lowballed the man a little bit in like a week ago after the playoffs. I said Nate Schmidt just locked himself up 2 million, and you guys came after me for that a little bit. But I, again, that's a good point with Ekblad. So to Nate Schmidt, real fast, if Ekblad doesn't sign, does Nate Schmidt sign?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a good idea, like to bring Nate Schmidt back because he's not going to be as expensive as Ekblad. I'd say his contract looks about like 2 to 3 years at, 2.5 to 4 million. But my thing on Schmidt is I think he's a guy you see walk because look, last season we signed Ekman Larson to a 1 year deal. He raised his value in Florida, got money from somewhere else and left. I think Nate Schmidt, the guy that came in to replace him, is literally the same thing. Got him on a small contract. He raises his value in Florida from this system and how good the Panthers are at hockey. And he goes to the open market and someone gives him a contract that I don't think the Panthers should go to. If it's 4 million, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Not
no.
that I don't think he's worth that. I think he is, but
In our position, it just doesn't make sense.
we know what type of game he has. If another team who's looking at him from afar wants to raise his value, just like we've raised the value on a guy like Ryan Lomberg last year, Kevin Stenlund, Ekman Larson, and a lot of those guys left Montour because of how good they played in Florida and got contracts that they're not going to live up to in other places because they're not on the Florida Panthers anymore. So I think Schmidt's a guy I see walking, but what a job he did in the playoffs, and I'm gonna miss what he brought to the team and what he brought to the elbow room as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can't agree more. I think there's no doubt in my mind that he walks. He definitely seems like one of those situations where he's going to go get his bag. And to bring up the point where if Aaron Ekblad doesn't sign and Nate Schmidt's, out there or whatever, I like Nate Schmidt. I really do. Um, I don't think he's the answer to replace Ekblad. I think you look to go elsewhere at that point. especially with his value being so high as it is right now. I think you look to go to another defenseman, um, or possibly okay, so possibly if you're gonna say right now, okay, we're not signing Ekblad, just put it out there, this isn't happening. Then maybe, and we do sign Marchand and Bennett, right? Theoretically, then maybe you go out and trade a Rodriguez, unfortunately, or a Boquist. I'm not going to say Lustrinen, even though he's up in the same year. Um, Rodriguez is up because Lustrinen is way more valuable to our team, in my opinion. I think in everybody's opinion. But yeah, if you go out and trade for one of those, get a defenseman back that, like a Seth Jones situation, gets to the team and, fits right in and does damage, then yeah, I think that's a good move.
Yeah, that's a hold up 1 second. That's a great point. I was gonna bring that up is I think the only way you bring back all three in my eyes is like it's either if they take a massive pay cut, which I'm not projecting, is if one of Rodriguez or Boqvist get traded, and that's the Panthers using their forward depth and capitalizing on it, which they could flip a guy like Rodriguez or Boqvist. And I love those guys, so I don't want to lose them. But if it makes sense for the team, you flip them for maybe a depth defenseman, maybe a backup goalie. You get rid of that 3 million and use that for Ekblad, use that for Marchand. It makes a lot of sense, especially if we're going to go into the season and one of them is going to be like if Boqvist is going to be scratched. Hey, if a team's willing to take that 3 million, hey, I'm for that.
Yeah, so I actually was going to get to that, but let's go to it since we're there. The possibility of trades, because you have a guy like Evan Rodriguez that if he gets traded, like you said, that opens up $3 million, which could be very valuable in the fourth line, which I will come back to. But you have a guy like Mackie Samoskevich that can replace Rodriguez. I mean, obviously, it's a little younger guy. I understand Rodriguez might have a little more experience, but you have a young guy that can come in and fill that role that needs this playing time to maybe hit his potential in a few years. And back to Nate Schmidt real fast. You have an Aaron Ekblad at 29 or 28. Nate Schmidt's 33.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nate Schmidt walking definitely makes sense. Um, I don't see Boquist getting traded. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's not like we're getting much out of that. I think it's what one and
It's
a half
more of just a
million.
cap relief
Yeah.
situation.
But to me, 1.5 million isn't going to solve our problem.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think Rodriguez makes the most sense, honestly. I think
Yeah.
he's definitely the odd man out. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's definitely if anyone was to go, it would be Rodriguez. And I have full confidence in the world, however Paul wants to do it. That's the thing about Mackey. I have full confidence in the world, whether obviously he's going to play on the second or third line, right? I have
hmm
full confidence in the world that he will fit in either one of those lines and be fantastic.
Yeah, I think the Panthers have to make it a priority to give him a chance. Like if we're gonna have a kid like that down there, he had 30 points in his rookie year, which is pretty solid. If you're gonna have a kid down there on your fourth line or scratch, you're ruining his development. So they have to find a way, even that means losing a player like Rodriguez, they have to find a way for him to be a top second liner or a third liner. So if that's gonna mean losing one of Rodriguez or Marchand walks, but it's just what they have to do. Like you have to let that kid develop.
Yeah. And I think back to the fourth line, I've talked a lot about it. And the fourth line is a big part of our game. The physicality, and we have AJ Greer, Jonah Gadjevich locked up. I think till next year they're both up, but this year they're neither one are up. But you have no second Sturm, both up this year, and obviously Sturm was a deadline trade, who's at a $2 million contract. I think he's gone. We didn't see that work out very good on that line. However, you have Tomas Nosek, and he had a $750,000, I think, right
Good
around that
grief.
range. Yeah. Um, Previously, I'm okay. I don't think Tomas Nosek's value has skyrocketed. I don't see that. And you look on the open market this year, there's not a lot of fourth liners that pop out to me that for decent value. Obviously, there's a few up there in the 4, 5, $6 million range, but in the $1 to $2 million range, there's not many that stand out to me. I think we see Tomas Nosek come back, and I think it's a smart move to bring Tomas Nosek back. Maybe just only on a 1 year deal. I mean, we have and let all three of them go up next year and see who's out there, maybe sign one or two of them back. But I think we see Tomas Nosek come back. Maybe it's somewhere in the 1.2 to 1.5 range. If it's there, I'm completely good with that.
Yeah, I, I'd love to bring Tomas Nosek back on this team to be our fourth line center. But here's the problem: fourth liners on championship winning teams, their value gets on the market goes up, and we saw it literally last season when Kevin Stenlund got 2 years, 4 million, two per season. Ryan Lomberg got something similar, and there's just like we can't afford to give Nosek that kind of money. So if a fourth liner on championship winning team, we've seen it Panthers, we've seen the Golden Knights fourth liners, we've seen yeah
No,
um
no, Nosek is not a Kevin Stenlund or a Ryan Lomberg.
sure, but the way he played in the Stanley Cup, and you look at, I mean, the way he penalty killed, you could see a team going out there and saying, "Hey, we can use a guy like this." So, but if the value is right, we bring him back. 1 year deal, two-year deal, 2 million, one per season. I'm all for that, but I don't know. I think a team's gonna go out there and give him a decent contract. It's just what happens when you win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I I I do think I think somebody overpays for him for sure. I do think the hype is there, and
But
especially that series against Toronto and how that fourth line was able to bring us back into it, and especially how how he showed, especially him, how he can bounce back and he's got that resilience and whatever, and teams out there need that, right? Because not every club is like the Panthers, right? So that some teams are looking for a culture change, and the fourth line with the
stop.
energy,
He's not a culture changing player. Come on.
the fourth line with energy,
To-
bro.
Yeah,
yes,
but
Tomas Nosek going to another team is not a culture changing player.
Okay,
no,
it's
not
a
yeah, but
start. It's
it's
a start.
So you said overpay. What's overpay to you? What is overpaying for Tomas Nosek?
I think it's just like I brought this up. I look at last year. I wanted to bring back Kevin Stenlund. He got overpaid on the open market, so like that he got 2 years, 2 million a season. That for a fourth line player, that's not what you're trying to give up, especially when you have a lot of players that you have to re-sign.
4 is fine. 4 is ridiculous
Yeah,
for Tomas Nosek.
if
I
it's two
think
years, 1.5, I'm interested.
I'm interested at 2. At 2 million at 2 years, I'm interested. Now, I'm not saying we do it. I take a long look at it, and I think it's a smart move.
Yeah,
I don't know
but
what.
here's a thing: is I don't know how the Panthers view Jesper Boquist at center because he's played it in his career. He played it a little bit in the regular season. Obviously, I don't think they didn't need him to play there. I have no idea how they view him as a center, but he's an option on the fourth line next year because he's done it in his career. But Maurice doesn't usually want to take a winger and put him at center, but I think it's an option they should look at.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that move. But as far as the fourth line goes, I think we need to keep one of those two, and I think Nosek is the better player. But I think we're gonna next episode we're gonna talk about pretty much the whole league, the open market, who we think might come to the Florida Panthers for these replacements, and I'm gonna leave the goaltending for that episode because we kind of have a little bit of I don't want to say a goaltending problem because we have Sergei Bobrovsky next year, but I think we're going to have some different opinions on that. So, and I want to just kind of take a look at who's out there. So I'm going to go and close this one out. I think that we have an idea of who we see come back. Hopefully, the value, the prices make sense. And July 1st is going to be a big day. So we're going to hopefully by the end of this week, we're filming this on Tuesday. So hopefully by Friday, definitely before next week, we will have the whole league free agency video podcast episode out for you. So Austin Wiseman, Nathan Bray, Joe Damer. Let's go Cats.
Let's go Cats, back-to-back champs. Let's go.
8 more years, baby. 8 more years.